The pink balloons hung perfectly in the afternoon breeze, each one tied with expensive silk ribbons that cost more than most families spent on groceries in a week. The chocolate birthday cake stood 3 layers tall on the marble patio table, decorated with sugar flowers that looked real enough to smell. 20 perfectly wrapped presents sat in a neat pile, their bright wrapping paper catching the sunlight that filtered through the mansion's perfectly manicured oak trees. 9-year-old Sophia Blake sat in her bright red party dress on the edge of her wheelchair, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as a group of children from her class walked up the long driveway toward her house. Her heart raced with excitement. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time, someone would actually want to play with her. The doorbell chimed its expensive melody through the Blake mansion, and Mrs. Patterson, her elderly nanny, opened the massive wooden door with a warm smile. "Welcome, children. Sophia is so excited you could come to her birthday party." 8 children stepped into the marble foyer, their eyes wide as they took in the crystal chandelier and the grand staircase with its red carpet runner. Sophia wheeled herself toward them, her prosthetic left leg visible beneath her dress, the metal joint catching the light. The moment they saw her leg, everything changed. Little by little, the children began stepping backward. First Emma Thompson, then Jake Sullivan, then Maria Rodriguez. Their faces shifted from curiosity to something that made Sophia's stomach twist into knots. Fear. Disgust. The same expression she saw everywhere she went. "Hi everyone," Sophia said softly, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm so happy you came. We have games and cake and—" "My mom is calling me," Emma suddenly announced, pulling out a phone that clearly wasn't ringing. "I have to go home right now." "Me too," Jake said quickly, backing toward the door. "I forgot I have, a dentist appointment." One by one they invented excuses. A sick grandmother. A forgotten soccer practice. A family emergency. Within 10 minutes, every single child had fled the mansion, leaving Sophia alone with her untouched cake and unopened presents. Mrs. Patterson tried to comfort her. "Maybe they really did have other plans, dear." But Sophia had seen this scene too many times before. She wheeled herself to the window and watched as the children gathered at the end of her driveway, laughing and planning to spend the afternoon at the public park down the street. Without her. Outside the mansion gates, 8-year-old Amara Johnson walked slowly beside her mother, carrying a bucket of cleaning supplies. Her mother, Candace, worked 3 jobs to keep their small apartment, and sometimes Amara had to come along when babysitters cost too much money. Amara wore a simple blue dress that Candace had sewn from fabric bought at the discount store, but she carried herself with a dignity that money couldn't buy. As they passed the Blake mansion, she noticed the group of children running away from the house, giggling and whispering to each other. "Did you see her leg?" one of them said loud enough for Amara to hear. "It's so gross. Why would anyone want to be friends with a robot girl?" Amara stopped walking and looked through the mansion gates. In the big window, she could see a girl in a red dress sitting all alone, her shoulders shaking like she was crying. The sight made Amara's heart hurt in a way she couldn't explain. "Mama," Amara said quietly, "why is that girl crying?" Candace followed her daughter's gaze and saw Sophia through the window. Her own heart broke a little bit. "Sometimes people feel sad on their birthdays, baby. Come on, we need to get to work." But Amara couldn't stop thinking about the girl in the red dress. All afternoon, as she helped her mother clean the office building down the street, she kept picturing that moment. The loneliness in the girl's face. The way she sat so still while other children ran away from her. That night, lying in the bed she shared with her mother in their tiny apartment, Amara made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. She was going to find that girl and be her friend. Have you ever watched someone being completely alone on what should be their happiest day? How did it make you feel? Share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories that remind us what really matters in life. The next morning, Sophia woke up in her canopy bed, surrounded by the birthday presents she'd opened by herself the night before. The expensive toys and books felt hollow in her hands. What good were the finest things money could buy when you had no one to share them with? Harrison Blake knocked softly on his daughter's bedroom door before entering. At 35, he still looked young despite the gray streaks that had appeared in his dark hair after his wife's death 3 years ago. He ran Blake Industries, a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but all his success meant nothing when he saw the sadness in his daughter's eyes. "Good morning, birthday girl," he said gently, sitting on the edge of her bed. "How are you feeling today?" Sophia looked up at her father with eyes that seemed too old for a 9-year-old face. "The same as always, Daddy. Like nobody wants me around." Harrison's heart clenched. He tried everything money could buy. The best doctors, the most advanced prosthetic, private tutors, expensive toys. But he couldn't buy his daughter the one thing she wanted most, a real friend. Maybe we could try a different school, he suggested, though they'd already tried 3 different private schools in the past 2 years. Sophia shook her head. It's not the school, Daddy. It's me. I'm different, and different scares people. Outside their conversation, neither of them knew that a little girl in a blue dress was walking through the public park, looking for a girl in a red dress who needed a friend more than anything else in the world. The Blake mansion sat on 5 acres of perfectly landscaped property in the wealthiest neighborhood of the city. Every morning, a team of gardeners arrived to maintain the rose gardens, trim the hedges, and keep the grass looking like a green carpet. The house itself had 12 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a library, a game room, an indoor swimming pool, and a dining room that could seat 20 people. In Sophia's bedroom alone, there were enough toys and books to stock a small store. Shelves lined with dolls from around the world, educational games that cost hundreds of dollars each, and a computer system that most adults could only dream of owning. But despite all these expensive things, the room felt empty and quiet. Sophia spent most of her time alone, reading books or playing computer games by herself. Mrs. Patterson was kind, but she was paid to take care of Sophia, not to be her friend. The physical therapist came 3 times a week to help her with exercises, but those visits were about work, not play. Harrison tried his best to spend time with his daughter when he wasn't traveling for business, but running a company left him with little free time. On weekends he would take Sophia to expensive restaurants or fancy toy stores, buying her whatever she wanted. But he could see that none of it made her truly happy. 3 miles away, in a neighborhood where the houses were small and close together, Amara Johnson lived with her mother in a 2-bedroom apartment above a grocery store. Their home was tiny compared to the Blake mansion, but it was filled with something the mansion lacked: warmth and laughter. Candace Johnson had been raising Amara alone since her daughter was a baby. At 32, she worked 3 jobs to pay their bills: cleaning offices early in the morning, stocking shelves at the grocery store during the day, and waitressing at a diner on weekends. Despite being tired most of the time, she always had energy for her daughter. Their apartment was small but clean and bright. Candace had painted the walls cheerful colors: yellow in the kitchen, light green in the living room, and soft blue in the bedroom they shared. The furniture came from yard sales and thrift stores, but Candace had a gift for making everything look nice with colorful throws and pillows she sewed herself. Amara's clothes were mostly second-hand, but Candace made sure they were always clean and mended. The little girl had 3 dresses: the blue one she'd worn yesterday, a green one for church, and a yellow one for special occasions. She had 2 pairs of shoes, sneakers for school and black flats for when they visited Candace's mother on Sundays. Even though they didn't have much money, Amara never felt poor. Her mother read to her every night, helped her with homework at the kitchen table, and always found ways to make ordinary days feel special. When they couldn't afford to go to movies, they would make popcorn at home and watch old films on their small television. When birthday gifts were too expensive, Candace would create treasure hunts around the apartment with small surprises she'd saved up to buy. Education is your ticket to a better life, Candace told her daughter every day. Work hard in school, be kind to others, and never let anyone tell you that you can't achieve your dreams because of where you come from. Amara was an excellent student who loved reading and math. Her teachers often praised her curiosity and kindness toward other children. At school, she was the one who helped new students find their classrooms and sat with lonely kids at lunch. Her mother had taught her that kindness costs nothing but means everything. On this particular morning, while Sophia sat in her mansion feeling isolated despite all her expensive possessions, Amara was helping her mother get ready for work. She packed her own lunch in a paper bag, made sure her homework was in her backpack, and gave her mother a hug that would last them both through the day. "You remember what we talked about?" Candace said as she prepared to leave for her morning cleaning job. "Mrs. Garcia from downstairs will walk you to school, and I'll pick you up at 3 o'clock. "I remember, Mama," Amara replied. "And I won't talk to strangers." But as Candace headed off to clean the same office building she'd cleaned yesterday and would clean tomorrow, Amara was already thinking about the girl she'd seen crying through the mansion window. Technically, that girl was a stranger. But sometimes, Amara thought, the right thing to do was more important than following every rule. After school that day, instead of waiting for her mother at the usual spot, Amara made a decision that would change everything. She walked toward the wealthy neighborhood where the Blake mansion sat behind its tall iron gates. She had no plan, no idea what she would say, and no way of knowing if she would even see the girl again. All she knew was that somewhere in that big house, there was someone who needed a friend as much as she wanted to give friendship. The afternoon sun was warm on her face as she walked past houses that looked like castles compared to her small apartment. But Amara didn't feel intimidated. Her mother had taught her that people were people, no matter how much money they had or how big their houses were. What she was about to do would bring two very different worlds together in a way that neither family could have imagined. Amara found Sophia exactly where she'd hoped, sitting alone in the small park that bordered the Blake property. The park was public, but it was in such an expensive neighborhood that few children from Amara's part of town ever played there. Sophia was in her wheelchair, wearing a bright green dress, tossing breadcrumbs to a family of ducks in the pond. For a moment, Amara hesitated. The girl looked so sad and lost that approaching her felt like interrupting something private. But remembering her mother's lessons about kindness, Amara took a deep breath and walked over. "Hi," she said simply, sitting down on the grass beside Sophia's wheelchair. "I'm Amara. Those ducks look really hungry." Sophia jumped slightly, surprised that someone was talking to her. She looked around to see if perhaps Amara was speaking to someone else, but they were alone in the park. When she realized the girl was actually talking to her, Sophia felt her cheeks warm with a mixture of hope and fear. "Oh," Sophia said quietly. I'm Sophia. And yes, they're always hungry. I come here almost every day to feed them." Amara smiled and reached into her backpack, pulling out half of the sandwich she'd saved from lunch. "Mind if I help? My mama always says sharing makes everything better." Without waiting for an answer, Amara broke her sandwich into small pieces and began tossing them to the ducks. Sophia watched in amazement as the other girl acted like sitting next to someone with a prosthetic leg was the most normal thing in the world. "You have pretty hair," Amara said, admiring Sophia's long blonde curls. "I wish mine would curl like that. Mine just grows straight up no matter what my mama does to it." Sophia touched her hair self-consciously. "Really? But your hair is so pretty and thick. Mine gets tangled all the time." They spent several minutes talking about hair, then about the ducks, then about school. Amara discovered that Sophia was homeschooled by private tutors, which explained why she'd never seen her at the local elementary school. "Don't you miss being around other kids?" Amara asked, genuinely curious. Sophia's face clouded over. "Not really. Other kids don't usually want to be around me." "Why not?" Amara asked, though she had a feeling she already knew the answer. Sophia gestured toward her prosthetic leg. "Because of this. It scares people. They think I'm weird or gross or that they might catch something from me." Amara looked at the prosthetic leg with open curiosity rather than fear or disgust. "Does it hurt?" "Sometimes when I wear it too long. But mostly it just feels different," Sophia answered honestly. No one had ever asked her that question before. "Can you run with it?" Amara asked. "A little bit. Not very fast and not for very long." "That's okay," Amara said matter-of-factly. "I'm not that fast either. My mama says it's better to walk together than to run alone anyway." Something warm spread through Sophia's chest at those words. She'd never heard anything like that before. "Your mama sounds really wise." "She is," Amara agreed proudly. "She works really hard to take care of us and she always knows the right thing to say when I'm sad or scared." "What does she do for work?" Sophia asked. Amara hesitated for a moment, wondering if a rich girl would judge her mother's jobs. But Sophia's eyes were kind and interested, not judgmental. "She cleans offices and works at a grocery store. Sometimes she waitresses on weekends too." "3 jobs?" Sophia asked, surprised. "That must be really hard." "It is," Amara admitted. "But she says hard work builds character, and character is more important than money." Sophia thought about that. She'd never had to think about money because her family had so much of it. But she'd also never thought about character the way Amara's mother talked about it. "I wish I had character like that," Sophia said quietly. "What do you mean?" Amara asked. "You seem really nice to me. But I've never had to work hard for anything. My dad just buys me whatever I want. Sometimes I think that's part of why other kids don't like me. They think I'm spoiled." Amara considered this carefully. "Are you spoiled?" Sophia thought about it honestly. "Maybe. I don't mean to be, but I've never had to go without anything I wanted." "Well," Amara said, "wanting things isn't the same as being mean about having them. You shared your duck food with me even though you didn't know me. That seems pretty nice to me." For the first time in months, Sophia smiled a real smile. "You want to feed the ducks with me again tomorrow?" "I'd like that," Amara said. "But I'll have to meet you after school. My mama doesn't know I'm here and she might worry if she can't find me." A small panic seized Sophia. "You won't tell anyone about me, will you? Sometimes when people find out about my family's money, they act different." I won't tell anyone if you don't want me to, Amara promised. But you don't have to worry about me acting different. My mama always says people are people, rich or poor. As they said goodbye that afternoon, both girls felt something they hadn't experienced in a long time. Sophia felt the possibility of real friendship, and Amara felt the satisfaction of reaching out to someone who needed kindness. Neither of them knew that this simple conversation by a duck pond would soon turn both of their families' lives upside down in the most wonderful way possible. For the next 2 weeks, Amara and Sophia met at the duck pond every day after school. They always had exactly 1 hour together before Amara had to rush home to meet her mother and before Mrs. Patterson started looking for Sophia. During those precious 60 minutes, they discovered how much they had in common despite their different backgrounds. Both girls loved to read, especially adventure stories about brave characters who overcame difficult challenges. Both enjoyed drawing, though Sophia had expensive art supplies while Amara made do with crayons and notebook paper. Both felt lonely in their own ways and found comfort in each other's company. Sophia began looking forward to their meetings with an excitement she'd never felt before. For the first time in years, she had something to be happy about. She started smiling more, even when Mrs. Patterson was teaching her mathematics or when her physical therapist came for sessions. You seem different lately, dear, Mrs. Patterson observed one afternoon. More cheerful. Did something happen? Sophia just smiled mysteriously. I guess I'm just having a good week. Meanwhile, Amara found herself thinking about her new friend throughout her school day. During lunch, instead of eating with her classmates, she would save half her sandwich for the ducks. During art class, she would draw pictures of the pond where she and Sophia met. Her teacher, Mrs. Chin, noticed the change in her drawings. These are lovely, Amara, Mrs. Chin said, looking at a picture Amara had drawn of 2 girls sitting by water. Who is this other girl? Just a friend, Amara replied, not wanting to break her promise to Sophia about keeping their friendship secret. On Friday of their second week of friendship, Sophia brought something special to their meeting. Hidden in her bag was a book she'd been saving, a brand new copy of The Secret Garden, with beautiful illustrations. I thought you might like this, Sophia said shyly, pulling out the book. It's about friendship and making things grow, even when everything seems impossible. Amara's eyes widened as she took the book. She'd never owned a new book before. All her books came from the library or were second-hand copies her mother found at yard sales. This one still had that special new book smell and the cover was bright and colorful. Sophia, this is beautiful, Amara said softly. But I can't take this. It looks expensive. Please take it, Sophia said quickly. I have lots of books and I want you to have this one. Besides, friends share things, right? Amara looked at the book in her hands, then at Sophia's hopeful face. She thought about what her mother always said about accepting help gracefully when it was offered with love. Thank you, Amara said with genuine gratitude. This is the nicest gift anyone has ever given me. I'll take really good care of it. Sophia beamed with happiness. Giving the book to Amara felt better than receiving any of the expensive presents her father had bought her. That afternoon, they sat by the pond reading parts of the book aloud to each other. Amara was an excellent reader, and Sophia loved listening to her voice bring the characters to life. When they got to the part where Mary Lennox finds Colin Craven in the secret room, both girls felt a connection to the story. Mary and Colin are like us, Sophia said thoughtfully. They're both different from other children, and they find each other when they need friendship most. And they help each other become braver, Amara added. Mary helps Colin believe he can walk again, and Colin helps Mary learn how to care about someone besides herself. Sophia looked at her prosthetic leg, then at Amara. Do you think I'll ever be brave like Colin? You're already brave, Amara said firmly. It takes courage to meet a stranger in the park and become friends with them. It takes courage to keep trying even when other people have been mean to you. I don't feel brave most of the time, Sophia admitted. I feel scared and different and like I don't belong anywhere. Amara thought about this carefully. My mama says being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared. What's the right thing for me to do? Sophia asked. Maybe stop hiding so much, Amara suggested gently. Maybe give other people a chance to know the real you instead of assuming they won't like you. Sophia considered this. What if they still don't like me? Then that's their loss, Amara said with the wisdom of someone much older than 8 years old. But what if some of them do like you? What if you're missing out on other friendships because you're too scared to try? As they parted that day, both girls carried new thoughts with them. Sophia began to wonder if perhaps she'd been building walls to protect herself that were also keeping potential friends away. Amara began to realize that helping someone else be brave was making her feel braver too. Neither girl knew that their secret friendship was about to be discovered in a way that would test everything they'd learned about courage, loyalty, and the true meaning of friendship. The discovery happened on a Tuesday afternoon when Harrison Blake decided to leave work early and surprise Sophia with a visit to her favorite ice cream shop. He'd been feeling guilty about the long hours he'd been working and wanted to spend quality time with his daughter. When he arrived at the mansion, Mrs. Patterson informed him that Sophia was taking her afternoon walk in the park, which was unusual because Sophia typically preferred to stay inside reading. Harrison decided to join her, thinking a walk together would be nice. He followed the path toward the small park that bordered their property, expecting to find his daughter feeding the ducks alone as she sometimes did. Instead, he found her sitting on a blanket with a young black girl, both of them laughing as they shared what appeared to be cookies from a paper bag. The sight stopped him in his tracks. Sophia was genuinely happy in a way Harrison hadn't seen since before her accident. Her face was lit up with joy as she listened to something the other girl was saying. For a moment, he felt nothing but gratitude that his daughter had found a friend. Then his businessman's instincts kicked in, and less generous thoughts began to creep into his mind. Who was this child? How had she gained access to his daughter? What did her family want? Harrison had learned through years of running a successful company that people often had hidden motives, especially when it came to his wealth. He'd dealt with numerous individuals who tried to use their children to get close to his family, hoping for money or business opportunities. He approached the girls and both looked up in surprise. "Daddy," Sophia said, her face immediately clouding with worry. "You're home early." "I wanted to surprise you," Harrison said, his eyes moving from his daughter to Amara. "And it seems I'm the one who's been surprised." Amara stood up quickly, recognizing the expensive suit and stern expression of a man who probably didn't want his daughter playing with someone like her. "I should go," she said quietly, gathering up the book Sophia had given her. "Wait," Harrison said, his voice carrying the authority he used in boardroom meetings. "What's your name, young lady?" "Amara Johnson, sir," she replied politely, though her heart was beating fast. "And where do you live, Amara Johnson?" Amara hesitated, glancing at Sophia who looked stricken with fear. "Daddy, please don't be mad," Sophia said quickly. "Amara is my friend. She's really nice and she makes me happy." Harrison's expression softened slightly when he saw the panic in his daughter's eyes, but his suspicions remained strong. "I live on Maple Street with my mama," Amara answered honestly. "She works cleaning buildings and at the grocery store." Harrison's suspicions deepened. Maple Street was in the poorest part of town, and he immediately assumed this was some kind of setup. A poor family using their child to get close to his daughter and his money. "How exactly did you meet my daughter?" he asked in a tone that made Amara feel very small. "I saw her crying after her birthday party," Amara said softly. "All the kids ran away from her and it made me sad. So I came to the park to see if she wanted a friend." The simple honesty in Amara's voice caught Harrison off guard, but he pushed the feeling aside. "Sophia, we need to go home now," he said firmly. "We'll discuss this later." "But Daddy?" Sophia began. "Now, Sophia." As Harrison wheeled his daughter away, Sophia looked back at Amara with tears in her eyes. "I'll see you tomorrow," she called out. "No," Harrison said quietly but firmly. "You won't." That evening at the Johnson apartment, Amara sat at the small kitchen table trying to do her homework while her mother prepared their simple dinner of rice and beans. But she couldn't concentrate on mathematics when her heart was breaking. "Baby, you've been quiet since I picked you up from school," Candace observed. "Something wrong?" Amara had been debating all afternoon whether to tell her mother about Sophia. She'd promised to keep their friendship secret, but now that Sophia's father had discovered them, she wasn't sure what to do. "Mama," she said slowly, "what would you do if you made a friend, but their family didn't want them to be friends with you because you're poor?" Candace set down her wooden spoon and looked at her daughter carefully. "Is this about something that really happened or just a question?" Amara took a deep breath and told her mother everything. About seeing Sophia cry on her birthday, about their daily meetings at the duck pond, about the book Sophia had given her, and about the way Sophia's father had looked at her that afternoon. When she finished, Candace was quiet for a long moment. "You did the right thing, baby," she said finally. "You saw someone who needed kindness and you gave it to them. That's what we're supposed to do in this world." "But what if I never see her again?" Amara asked, tears starting to form in her eyes. Candace knelt down beside her daughter's chair and took her hands gently. "Sometimes when we do the right thing, it doesn't work out the way we hope," she said softly. But that doesn't mean it wasn't worth doing. You gave that little girl something precious. You showed her that she's worthy of friendship just as she is. I just want to help her not be sad anymore, Amara whispered. I know, baby. And maybe you still can. Good things have a way of working out even when it seems impossible. Neither Amara nor her mother knew that at that exact moment, 3 miles away in a mansion filled with expensive things, Sophia Blake was having the biggest argument of her young life with her father, fighting for the friendship that had brought her the first real happiness she'd known in years. The argument between Sophia and her father lasted for 2 hours and ended with both of them in tears. Sophia had never defied her father before, but the thought of losing Amara's friendship gave her a courage she didn't know she possessed. She's using you, Sophia, Harrison said, his voice heavy with frustration and concern. Her mother probably put her up to this. They know who we are, how much money we have. That's not true, Sophia protested. Amara doesn't care about money. She gave me half her sandwich even though she only had one for lunch. She shared her crayons with me even though she only has a few. She likes me for me, not because of what you can buy. You're 9 years old, Harrison replied. You don't understand how these things work. I understand that she's the only person who's ever talked to me like I'm normal, Sophia shot back. I understand that for the first time in my life I have a real friend. And I understand that you want to take that away from me just because her family doesn't have as much money as we do. Harrison stared at his daughter, shocked by the strength and clarity of her words. He'd never heard her speak with such passion about anything. Sophia, he said more gently, I'm just trying to protect you. From what? From being happy? Sophia asked, tears streaming down her face. I've been miserable for years, Daddy. Ever since the accident, I felt like a freak that nobody could ever love. Amara changed that. She saw my leg and didn't run away. She saw me crying and decided to help instead of ignoring me. Harrison felt his heart breaking as he listened to his daughter's pain. He'd thought he was protecting her by keeping her isolated, by controlling who she spent time with. But he was beginning to realize that his protection might be causing more harm than good. I need time to think about this, he said finally. While you're thinking, I'm going to keep being sad and lonely, Sophia replied. Just like I was before I met her. The next morning, Harrison couldn't concentrate on his business meetings. His daughter's words kept echoing in his mind. He'd built his empire by being suspicious of everyone's motives, by assuming that people always wanted something from him. But what if, just this once, he was wrong? Meanwhile, across town, Candace Johnson was having her own difficult morning. Amara had barely touched her breakfast and was clearly heartbroken about losing her friend. Mama, Amara said as they walked to her school, do you think rich people think we're bad just because we don't have money? The question hit Candace like a punch to the chest. This was exactly the kind of pain she'd hoped to protect her daughter from for as long as possible. Some people judge others by how much money they have, Candace said carefully. But that doesn't make those people right. It just makes them afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that maybe they're not as special as they think they are. Afraid that maybe being rich doesn't make them better than anyone else. That afternoon, while Amara was at school and Candace was stocking shelves at the grocery store, fate intervened in an unexpected way. Sophia had convinced Mrs. Patterson to take her to the grocery store where Candace worked, claiming she wanted to buy special treats for the ducks at the pond. In reality, she was hoping to see Amara or her mother. While Mrs. Patterson was distracted by a phone call in the car, Sophia spotted Candace arranging cans on a shelf. Even though they'd never met, she somehow knew this had to be Amara's mother. The woman had the same kind eyes and gentle manner that Amara possessed. Working up all her courage, Sophia approached Candace. Excuse me, she said politely. Are you Mrs. Johnson? Candace turned around and saw a young girl in a wheelchair, wearing a bright maroon dress. Even before Sophia introduced herself, Candace knew exactly who she was looking at. You must be Sophia, Candace said with a warm smile. Amara has told me so much about you. She has? Sophia asked, surprised and pleased. Oh yes. She thinks you're the nicest, smartest, bravest girl she's ever met. Sophia felt tears welling up in her eyes. I miss her so much. My daddy says we can't be friends anymore because your families are different, Candace finished gently. Sophia nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Candace knelt down so she was at eye level with Sophia. Can I tell you something, sweetheart? Your friendship means the world to my daughter. She's been sad since yesterday because she thinks she'll never see you again. I've been sad too, Sophia whispered. Sometimes adults make mistakes when they're trying to protect the people they love, Candace said softly. Maybe your daddy just needs to understand that friendship isn't about money. It's about caring for each other. At that moment, Mrs. Patterson appeared, looking flustered as she ended her phone call. Sophia, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for... Oh. She stopped when she saw Candace. This is Mrs. Johnson, Sophia said quickly. Amara's mama. Mrs. Patterson looked uncertain, clearly remembering Harrison's instructions about the friendship. Candace stood up and extended her hand politely. I'm Candace Johnson. You must be Sophia's caregiver. Mrs. Patterson, the older woman replied, shaking Candace's hand despite her reservations. I want you to know, Candace continued, that your Sophia has been a wonderful friend to my daughter. She's shown Amara such kindness and generosity. You should be very proud of the young lady you're helping to raise. Mrs. Patterson found herself warming to Candace's genuine sincerity. Sophia has been happier these past few weeks than I've seen her in years. Maybe, Candace said carefully, there's a way for the girls to continue their friendship that would make everyone comfortable. Just then, Sophia had an idea that would change everything. Mrs. Patterson, she said urgently, I left my bracelet at the duck pond yesterday. The one Grandma gave me before she died. Could we please go look for it? Mrs. Patterson's face grew concerned. The bracelet was a precious family heirloom, one of the few things Sophia had left from her grandmother. Of course, dear. We'll go right now. Sophia looked at Candace with eyes that were suddenly bright with hope and mischief. Mrs. Johnson, do you think Amara might want to help us look for it after school? She knows exactly where we usually sit. Candace understood immediately what Sophia was trying to do. The clever girl was creating an opportunity for the adults to meet and see the friendship for themselves. I think she'd be happy to help, Candace said with a small smile. We'll meet you at the pond at 3:30. What none of them knew was that Harrison Blake had also decided to visit the duck pond that afternoon, hoping to understand what had made his daughter so happy there. By 4 o'clock, all the adults would be face to face, and the real conversation about love, friendship, and breaking down barriers would finally begin. At exactly 3:30 that afternoon, Amara and her mother arrived at the duck pond to find Sophia and Mrs. Patterson searching through the grass near the water's edge. Amara's face lit up with joy when she saw her friend, and she ran over immediately to help with the search. Don't worry, Sophia, Amara said confidently. We'll find your grandma's bracelet. I know every inch of this place. For 20 minutes, the two girls searched together while Candace and Mrs. Patterson watched from a respectful distance. Gradually, the two women began talking, and Mrs. Patterson found herself impressed by Candace's warmth and wisdom. I've never seen Sophia so animated with another child, Mrs. Patterson admitted. She's usually so quiet and withdrawn. Amara talks about Sophia constantly, Candace replied. She says Sophia is the smartest person she knows, and that she's taught her so much about books and art. Just as Mrs. Patterson was beginning to think that perhaps Harrison's concerns were unfounded, Harrison himself appeared on the path leading to the pond. He'd left another business meeting early, driven by a need to understand what was happening in his daughter's life. The moment he saw Candace, all his suspicions came flooding back. Here was proof that this was all a setup. The woman had somehow arranged to be here, probably hoping to meet him and ask for money. What is this? He demanded, striding toward the group with his jaw set in a hard line. Sophia looked up from her search, her face going pale when she saw her father's angry expression. Daddy, I lost Grandma's bracelet, she said quickly. Mrs. Johnson and Amara are helping us look for it. Harrison's eyes moved from his daughter to Candace, who was standing quietly with a dignified expression that showed no fear, despite his obvious anger. How convenient, he said coldly. And how exactly did Mrs. Johnson know to be here at this precise time? Before Candace could answer, Mrs. Patterson stepped forward. I invited her, Mr. Blake, she said firmly. Sophia was distraught about the lost bracelet, and I thought having another pair of eyes to help search would be useful. Harrison looked surprised. Mrs. Patterson had worked for his family for 5 years and had never contradicted him before. Mrs. Patterson, we discussed this. Sophia is not to have contact with. With what? Candace interrupted, her voice calm but strong. With people who care about her? With someone who makes her happy. Harrison turned his attention to Candace, and the two adults faced each other across a divide that seemed much wider than the few feet of grass between them. With people who are trying to use her, Harrison said bluntly. I know what this is about. You've probably researched my family, found out how much money we have, and you're using your daughter to get close to mine. The accusation hung in the air like a slap. Amara stopped searching for the bracelet and looked up at Harrison with hurt and confusion in her eyes. "Daddy, that's not true," Sophia said, her voice shaking with emotion. But Harrison wasn't finished. "How much do you want?" he asked Candace directly. "For your daughter's friendship? For keeping this touching story going? Name your price." Candace felt a flash of anger so strong it took her breath away. But before she could respond, Amara spoke up in a voice that was small but crystal clear. "My mama doesn't want your money," she said, looking directly at Harrison. "She's never even asked Sophia about your money. She just wants me to be kind to people who are sad." "Amara," Candace said gently, but her daughter continued, "and Sophia is sad a lot because nobody wants to be her friend. Not because of money but because they're scared of her leg. But I'm not scared because my mama taught me that being different doesn't make someone bad." Harrison looked down at the 8-year-old girl who was defending his daughter with such simple, honest words. For the first time he really saw Amara as an individual rather than a threat. "I don't want anything from you," Candace said quietly, her voice steady despite her anger. "I certainly don't want money for my daughter's friendship. The idea that you would even suggest such a thing tells me everything I need to know about how you view people like us." "People like you?" Harrison began. "Poor people," Candace finished. "Black people. People who work for a living instead of inheriting wealth. People who apparently can't be trusted to have genuine feelings or honest motives." Harrison felt the first crack in his certainty. There was something in Candace's tone, in the way she held herself, that didn't fit his assumptions about what kind of person she was. "Every day my daughter comes home from your pond talking about how smart Sophia is, how kind she is, how she shares her food and her books," Candace continued. "Amara has never once mentioned money or a big house or expensive things. She talks about a friend who makes her feel important and valued. And every day I see my daughter happier than she's been since her accident," Mrs. Patterson added, surprising everyone by joining the conversation. "These two children have something special, Mr. Blake. Something real." Harrison looked at his daughter, who was watching the adult conversation with tears streaming down her face. "I just want to keep my friend," Sophia whispered. "She's the only person who's ever made me feel normal." At that moment something unexpected happened. The sky, which had been cloudy all afternoon, suddenly opened up with a downpour that caught everyone completely unprepared. "The community center," Candace called out, pointing to a small building at the edge of the park. "We can wait out the storm there." As they all ran for shelter, Harrison found himself helping to push Sophia's wheelchair while Amara held an umbrella over his daughter to keep her dry. In that moment, watching how naturally and protectively the little girl cared for Sophia, Harrison began to see their friendship through different eyes. Inside the community center, dripping wet and crowded together in the small lobby, the two families would have their most honest conversation yet. And Harrison Blake would finally begin to understand what he'd been too proud and too afraid to see. The community center lobby was small and cramped, with only a few plastic chairs and a water fountain that had seen better days. All 5 of them were soaking wet from the sudden storm, and Harrison felt distinctly out of place in his expensive suit among the children's artwork hanging on the walls and the bulletin board covered with notices about food drives and free community programs. Mrs. Patterson found some paper towels in a supply closet and helped the girls dry off while Harrison and Candace stood on opposite sides of the small space, the tension between them still thick despite the forced intimacy of their shelter. "Daddy," Sophia said quietly, "are you still mad at Amara?" Harrison looked at his daughter, then at Amara, who was wrapping her thin sweater more tightly around herself in the air-conditioned building. For the first time he noticed that her clothes, while clean and neat, were clearly second-hand. Her shoes had been repaired with tape and her backpack was frayed at the edges. But he also noticed the way Amara immediately moved to sit beside Sophia, the way she shared her dry paper towels without being asked, and the way she looked at his daughter with genuine affection rather than calculation. "I'm not mad at Amara," Harrison said slowly. "I'm just trying to understand." "What don't you understand?" Amara asked with the directness that only children possess. Harrison found himself at a loss for words. How could he explain to an 8-year-old that he'd spent years being targeted by people who wanted his money? How could he describe the cynicism that had grown in him after his wife's death, when even her funeral had attracted people hoping to gain something from his grief? "Adults make things complicated sometimes," he said finally. "My mama says that's because adults forget how to trust people," Amara replied. "She says when you expect the worst from everyone, that's usually what you get." Candace gave her daughter a warning look, but Harrison held up his hand. "It's all right," he said. "She's probably right." He turned to Candace, who was sitting quietly with her hands folded in her lap. "I owe you an apology. What I said about money, that was wrong of me." Candace looked up at him, her expression guarded but not hostile. Apology accepted. Can I ask you something honestly? Harrison continued. Did you know who Sophia was when your daughter first approached her? I had no idea, Candace answered truthfully. Amara just told me she'd seen a sad girl at a birthday party and wanted to be her friend. I didn't know your family's name or anything about your business until just now when Mrs. Patterson mentioned Blake Industries. Harrison felt another piece of his certainty crumble. And you really don't want anything from us? Candace was quiet for a long moment, choosing her words carefully. Mr. Blake, she said finally, I want the same thing for my daughter that you want for yours. I want her to be happy, safe, and loved. I want her to have opportunities to learn and grow. I want her to know that she matters in this world. Those are the same things I want for Sophia, Harrison admitted. Then maybe we have more in common than you think. Through the rain-streaked windows, they could see the storm beginning to ease, but none of them made any move to leave. For the first time, the adults were really talking to each other instead of talking past each other. Can I tell you what I see when I look at your daughter? Candace asked. Harrison nodded. I see a little girl who's been hurt, not just physically but emotionally. I see someone who's been protected so much that she's become isolated. And I see someone who has so much love to give but is afraid to offer it because she's been rejected before. Harrison felt his throat tighten. Every word Candace spoke was true. And can I tell you what Amara sees when she looks at Sophia? Candace continued. She sees a friend who shares her lunch with ducks, who gives away books because she likes to make people happy, and who knows more interesting things than anyone else her age. She doesn't see a disability or a rich girl or a charity case. She just sees Sophia. That's all I've ever wanted, Sophia said softly. For someone to just see me. Harrison knelt down beside his daughter's wheelchair, his expensive suit forgotten as his knees touched the community center's worn carpet. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I was so afraid of someone hurting you that I almost took away the best thing that's happened to you in years. He looked up at Amara, who was watching the scene with wise eyes. Amara, I'm sorry I was rude to you and said mean things about your mother. Will you forgive me? Amara nodded solemnly. My mama says forgiveness is a gift you give yourself as much as the other person. Harrison smiled at that, then looked at Candace with new respect. Your daughter is remarkable. So is yours, Candace replied. They both are. Outside, the rain was stopping and patches of sunlight were beginning to break through the clouds. But inside the small community center lobby, something much more important than weather was changing. For the first time since they'd met, Harrison Blake and Candace Johnson were seeing each other as parents first, as people with hopes and fears and love for their children. And in that recognition, the foundation was being laid for something neither of them had expected. The possibility of their own friendship, and perhaps something even deeper. Have you ever watched two people overcome their differences for the sake of their children? Sometimes the most beautiful relationships bloom in the most unexpected places. What do you think will happen next in this journey? Share your thoughts below and subscribe to see how this heartwarming story unfolds. 3 weeks after the storm, both families had settled into a new routine that brought joy to everyone involved. Sophia and Amara no longer had to meet in secret at the duck pond. Instead, Harrison had arranged for Amara to be picked up after school twice a week and brought to the Blake mansion, where the girls could play together safely. On weekends, Harrison would take both girls on outings, to the children's museum, to the zoo, or to the park where they could feed ducks and play on the playground equipment that was designed to accommodate Sophia's wheelchair. Watching his daughter laugh and play with genuine happiness had begun to heal something broken inside Harrison's heart. Candace remained cautious about accepting too much help from Harrison, but she'd begun to trust his motives. When he offered to pay for private tutoring for Amara, she politely declined. When he suggested covering Amara's school supplies for the year, she thanked him but said they were managing fine. She was determined to maintain her family's independence and dignity. Harrison found himself both frustrated and impressed by Candace's refusal to accept his help. He was used to solving problems with money, but this remarkable woman seemed determined to solve them with hard work and pride instead. On a Thursday evening in October, Harrison was reading financial reports in his study when Sophia knocked on his door. Daddy, can I talk to you about something important? Harrison set aside his papers and gave his daughter his full attention. Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind? Sophia wheeled herself closer to his desk, her expression serious beyond her years. Amara's mama works really hard, doesn't she? Yes, she does, Harrison agreed. 3 jobs from what I understand. And they don't have much money even though her mama works so much. Harrison nodded, wondering where this conversation was heading. "Daddy, that doesn't seem fair," Sophia said quietly. "Why does someone who works 3 jobs have less money than you do when you only have 1 job?" The question caught Harrison off guard. He'd never thought about wealth inequality from his 9-year-old daughter's perspective before. "Well," he said carefully, "different jobs pay different amounts of money. And I was lucky to inherit some money from my family, which helped me start my business." "So you were lucky and Amara's mama wasn't?" "I suppose that's one way to look at it." Sophia was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "Daddy, I want to give Amara's family some of our luck." "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "I mean we have more than we need and they don't have enough." "That's not right. We should share." Harrison felt a surge of pride in his daughter's compassion, but also a concern about how to handle this delicate situation. "Sophia, we've talked about this before. Mrs. Johnson is very proud and she doesn't want to accept money from us. We have to respect that. But there has to be something we can do," Sophia insisted. "Amara told me her mama cries sometimes when she thinks Amara is asleep, because she's worried about paying for things. And Amara pretends she doesn't want toys or new clothes so her mama won't feel bad about not being able to buy them." Harrison's heart clenched at this information. He'd seen Candace's strength and dignity, but he'd never considered the private struggles she might be facing. "What do you think we should do?" he asked his daughter. "I think we should help them in a way that doesn't feel like charity," Sophia said thoughtfully. "Like maybe offering her mama a better job instead of just giving them money." Harrison stared at his daughter in amazement. At 9 years old, she'd identified the exact solution he'd been struggling to find. "That's a brilliant idea, Sophia. But what kind of job could I offer her?" "I don't know," Sophia admitted. "But you're smart about business things. You could figure it out." That night, Harrison lay awake thinking about his daughter's words. By morning he had an idea that might work for everyone. The Blake mansion was large enough that it really should have a full-time household manager. Someone to coordinate with the cleaning service, manage Mrs. Patterson's schedule, handle grocery shopping and meal planning, and take care of the dozens of small tasks that kept a large household running smoothly. More importantly, Harrison had been thinking about starting a charitable foundation through his company. He needed someone with organizational skills and a genuine understanding of community needs to help develop and manage the foundation's programs. Candace Johnson had been managing 3 jobs, a household and a child for years. She had exactly the skills he needed, and she clearly understood what working families in their community needed most. The position would pay more than her 3 current jobs combined, include health insurance and other benefits, and give her weekends free to spend with her daughter. It would also be a legitimate job with real responsibilities, not charity disguised as employment. Harrison spent the weekend developing a detailed job description and salary package. On Monday morning, he called Candace and asked if she could meet him for coffee to discuss something important. They met at a small cafe near the grocery store where Candace worked, and Harrison could see the exhaustion in her face after another long morning of cleaning offices. "Candace," he began, "I have a business proposition for you, and I want you to know up front that this has nothing to do with our daughter's friendship. This is purely business." Candace looked skeptical but nodded for him to continue. Harrison explained his need for a household manager and his plans for starting a charitable foundation. He outlined the job responsibilities, the salary, and the benefits package. "The position would start immediately if you're interested," he concluded. "And I want to be clear that this is a real job with real expectations. I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you employment because I believe you're the right person for the work." Candace listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions about the foundation's goals and the household management responsibilities. Harrison could see her mind working as she considered the opportunity. "This salary," she said finally, looking at the figure he'd written down, "this is more than all 3 of my current jobs combined." "Yes," Harrison confirmed, "because you'd be taking on significant responsibilities, managing my household and helping to develop a foundation that will serve our entire community." Candace was quiet for a long time, and Harrison could see her pride warring with her practical needs. "Mr. Blake," she said finally, "I need to ask you something directly. Are you offering me this job because I'm qualified, or because you feel sorry for me?" Harrison looked her straight in the eyes. "Candace, if I just felt sorry for you, I'd offer you money. I'm offering you a job because I need someone I can trust, someone who understands what real families need, and someone with the intelligence and integrity to help me do meaningful work in our community. Based on everything I've observed about you, you're exactly what I'm looking for." After a moment that seemed to last forever, Candace smiled. When do I start? 1 year later, on a crisp October afternoon, Sophia Blake sat in her wheelchair at the edge of her backyard, watching as nearly 30 children played together on the elaborate playground equipment that Harrison had installed the previous spring. The party decorations fluttered in the autumn breeze, balloons in every color of the rainbow, streamers hanging from the oak trees, and tables covered with more birthday cake and ice cream than one 10-year-old could ever need. But unlike her 9th birthday party, this celebration was filled with laughter, friendship, and genuine joy. Sophia, come on, called Rebecca Martinez, a girl from Sophia's new school. We're about to start the treasure hunt. Sophia smiled and wheeled herself toward the group of children who were waiting for her to join them. Among them was Amara, who was wearing a beautiful new green dress and beaming with happiness as she helped organize the younger children. The past year had transformed both families in ways none of them could have imagined. Candace had proven to be everything Harrison had hoped for and more. As household manager, she'd brought warmth and efficiency to the Blake mansion that it had never known before. She'd hired local women to help with cleaning and cooking, creating jobs for people in her old neighborhood while ensuring that Harrison and Sophia were well cared for. But her real gift had been in developing the Blake Foundation. Working with Harrison, she created programs that provided job training for single mothers, scholarships for children from low-income families, and support services for families dealing with medical challenges. The foundation had already helped more than 200 families in their first year of operation. You were right, Harrison had told her just last week. The best solutions come from people who really understand the problems. Amara had thrived in her new private school, where she was consistently at the top of her class in both academics and citizenship. But more importantly, she'd maintained the kindness and wisdom that had drawn Sophia to her in the first place. She still saved half her lunch to share with anyone who seemed hungry, and she still had a special gift for making lonely children feel included. Sophia had blossomed in ways that amazed everyone who knew her. Enrolled in a small private school that specialized in including children with physical differences, she discovered a confidence she'd never known she possessed. She had a core group of close friends who valued her intelligence, humor, and loyalty. The prosthetic leg that had once made her feel like a freak now seemed like just another part of who she was. More importantly, both girls had learned that true friendship crosses all boundaries of race, class, and physical ability. They discovered that love and kindness are more powerful than prejudice and fear. As Harrison watched the children play together, he felt a hand slip into his. Candace stood beside him, wearing an elegant blue dress and a smile that made his heart skip beats even after 6 months of officially dating. Hard to believe this is the same little girl who used to cry at birthday parties, Candace said softly. Hard to believe any of this, Harrison replied, squeezing her hand gently. A year ago, I was so busy protecting Sophia from the world that I was keeping her from living in it. And a year ago, I was so busy working to survive that I almost forgot to help my daughter learn how to truly live, Candace added. They watched as Sophia and Amara worked together to help a shy 5-year-old boy join the treasure hunt. The boy had been born with a cleft palate and was still learning to feel comfortable around other children. But under the patient guidance of both girls, he was laughing and participating in the game. They're going to change the world, those two, Harrison said with pride. They already have, Candace replied. They changed ours. As the afternoon wore on, the party moved from the backyard to the mansion's large living room, where Harrison had arranged for a special surprise. A local children's author was coming to read from her new book about friendship and acceptance, and several of the children's parents had stayed to listen as well. During the reading, Harrison noticed something that made his heart full. Children of all different backgrounds, abilities, and economic circumstances sitting together, completely absorbed in a story about kindness triumphing over prejudice. Some were from his wealthy neighborhood, others were children of Candace's friends and co-workers, and several were kids from the programs run by the Blake Foundation. At the end of the reading, the author asked if any of the children had questions. Amara raised her hand. What made you want to write about different kinds of people being friends? The author smiled. Because I believe that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. When we learn from each other and take care of each other, wonderful things happen. Like when my mama got a better job because my friend's daddy needed someone smart to help him help other people, Amara said matter-of-factly. Several adults in the room chuckled at her innocent directness, but Harrison felt tears spring to his eyes. Through the lens of an 8-year-old, the complex emotions and negotiations of the past year were reduced to their simplest truth. People helping people because it was the right thing to do. As the party wound down and families began to leave, Sophia found herself alone with Amara in her bedroom, surrounded by the birthday gifts she'd received. Amara, Sophia said thoughtfully. Do you ever think about that first day when you came to talk to me at the duck pond? All the time, Amara replied. I was so scared you wouldn't want to be my friend. I was scared too, Sophia admitted. I thought you might run away like everyone else did. I'm glad we were both brave enough to try. Me too, Sophia agreed. Do you think our kids will be friends someday? Amara laughed. We're only 8 and 10 years old. We don't have kids yet. But when we do, Sophia insisted. Do you think they'll be friends? I think, Amara said with the wisdom that had always made her seem older than her years, that if we teach them what our mamas taught us about kindness and love, they'll know how to be friends with anyone. Downstairs, Harrison and Candace were cleaning up the last of the party decorations while Mrs. Patterson supervised the professional catering staff. Candace, Harrison said quietly, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. What's that? She replied, folding napkins and stacking them neatly. Harrison took a deep breath, his heart racing despite his business-trained confidence. I know we've only been officially dating for 6 months, but I feel like I've known you much longer. You and Amara have brought so much joy and love into our lives. You've made me a better father and a better man. Candace stopped folding napkins and looked at him with curious eyes. Candace Johnson, Harrison said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket and dropping to one knee, will you marry me? The silence that followed felt like an eternity, but it was broken by the sound of 2 little girls cheering from the top of the staircase. Say yes, Mama, Amara called down. Say yes so we can be real sisters. Please say yes, Sophia added. I want us to be a family. Candace looked from the ring to Harrison's hopeful face to the 2 beaming girls on the stairs. Yes, she said with tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. Yes, I'll marry you. As Harrison slipped the ring onto her finger and the girls raced downstairs to hug them both, Candace thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. It had started with a lonely little girl crying at her birthday party and another little girl brave enough to care about a stranger's sadness. Now, surrounded by love and laughter in the home that had once felt empty despite all its expensive furnishings, she understood that the greatest treasures in life couldn't be bought with money. They could only be found in the courage to open your heart, the wisdom to see past differences, and the faith to believe that kindness really could change the world. 6 months later, on a beautiful spring day, Harrison Blake and Candace Johnson were married in the backyard of the mansion, surrounded by friends from every walk of life. Sophia served as maid of honor, and Amara was the flower girl. The wedding cake was made by the woman who ran the bakery where Candace used to work, and the flowers were arranged by volunteers from the Blake Foundation. But the most beautiful part of the celebration was watching 2 families who had been brought together by the pure friendship of 2 little girls become one family united by love, respect, and the understanding that true happiness comes from lifting each other up. As they danced to their first song as husband and wife, Harrison whispered to Candace, "Thank you for teaching me that the best things in life can't be bought. Thank you for teaching me that sometimes accepting help is just another way of giving love," Candace whispered back. Nearby, Sophia and Amara danced together, their laughter ringing through the evening air like music. They were no longer just friends, they were sisters in every way that mattered. And their love for each other had created something beautiful that would ripple out into the world for generations to come. The story that had begun with a millionaire's lonely daughter and a poor girl's compassionate heart had become something much larger, a testament to the power of love to overcome any obstacle, and proof that when kindness leads the way, miracles really do happen.